Well, Ed will keep you on track, and I appreciate his service in a number of areas. But this is important. In fact, I stand at the back and saying, at this point, you don't realize how complicated this is. This is so different. I've been in districts. I've been part of over $1 billion in bond issues. I've been in districts that grown from 30,000 to 60,000 while I was there. Watched all of that growth take place. Was another district that growing as high as 21% a year. So I've been around all that. But you know what about those districts? All you had to decide was, where are we going to build the next school? What's it going to be? And it was kind of cut and dry. And yeah, there were committees, but it was basically saying, okay, well, yeah, okay, that works good, let's go. And this one, there's so much depth to what you're going to have to decide with current facilities as well as potential new facilities. So you guys really have a big job. And he did say selected. All of your names were taken to the school board. Not that they were necessarily going to say yay or nay, but this is a board committee. That's why you're able to go and make the recommendation to them, because it is a board-appointed committee. I want to spend just a little bit talking about the core values, vision, mission, a little bit about our district. And not that you don't know about our district, but I want to give you a little bit of a background so that as you start thinking about where we're headed, what we're doing, why we do what we do, that may help you out. When I came in January of 2015, came partway through the year, the very first thing we did in February of 15 is put together a strategic planning team. And there are folks in this room that were on that strategic planning committee. And I won't go into all the reasons of why we need to do that, but being new, it was very easy, and I've done strategic planning in other districts. As the facilitator, it's very easy for me to come in new and say, we're going to go and get this plan in place to give us some direction. And so we put together a plan the board approved on May 19th, 2015. Destination 2020, basically, where are we headed in the next 5 years? You'll see some people who do 10-year plans. The only problem with 10-year plans is things change so much that most of that drifts away. And so the intentionality of trying to figure out what is it we want to do in terms of schools, and a lot of that dealing with curriculum and delivery and how we're going to go about educating our kids in Lowell LEISD. And one of the comments that I always make, if you'll notice, is as they create their futures. I make the challenge, and many times is, we know how fast things are changing. That's not what this talks about, because it would blow you away if you've not studied where we're headed and what's happening in the United States in terms of not just technology, but demographics and everything else. It would shock you. But what we want to do is have our kids have transferable skills that when they go out into the workplace, it isn't a matter of, well, this is my skill set, what do you have for me? We know that fewer and fewer people are going to work for corporations larger than 1,000. Most now is less than 1,000 people, and that's been a trend for about 10 years. And so we got to create people that don't just operate in that silo, this is my job, this is my job. They're able to collaborate and work with other people. A lot of that has to do with what we do with them K through 12. And so that has to do with, many times, facilities and what those facilities are like to allow us to deliver that. And so what we talk about is we want kids to be able to create their futures. And we talk about, do we prepare kids for a future, or do we prepare kids to create their futures? Well, I think we do a little bit of both. But if we don't think about helping them to figure out, how do I create my own future, and that whole entrepreneurial piece, we're really shortchanging our kids. And so that's part of what we're after with that. In that, we took to the board our core values, vision, mission, goals, our action plans and action steps, and I'll send you a copy of that. It's actually on it's on our website, but it's part of this piece. We'll repost that so you can look at that if you want to. And that's dynamic, by the way. Our goals, action plans, and action steps are dynamic. The board approved the first 3. We leave these dynamic so we don't have to go back to the board to get them changed. If we want to change, we can change, because so many strategic plans end up becoming strategic plan on the shelf. They're just sitting there and do nothing, and everybody had a whoop time putting it together, but it doesn't drive anything. And we want it to drive things. And so it's got to be dynamic, and we're working with that. I think about Pike Place Fish Market, that when that was purchased by the new owner in 1965, as he went through, he decided to ask the employees of Pike Place Fish Market, what is it that you want to be known for? And they said, we'd love to be world famous. And so they put up a sign that said, Pike Place Fish Market world famous, but they weren't world famous. That was their vision, was to become world famous. And so many times as you set what you want to do, you think in that direction. So they started doing things that would bring about the idea that they were world famous, and now they are. And so when we think about our district, one of the things that we talked about as far as a mission is to become the destination district. Can we be a destination district for every single person? The answer to that is no. No school district can. But what we want is people who come to the North Texas area to say, I want to buy a home in Little Elm ISD, intentionally want to buy a home there. It's not first, hey, what's the price point, which we all know is important, but they say, I want to come to Little Elm ISD for what it has to offer. That's what we talk about being a destination district. That they don't end up here by default because that was the price of the home they could afford. And you'll see later, of course, our home values, like everybody else, are rising significantly, and you'll see some of that impact. One of the things that's really, really important to us as a leadership team and important to our school board is culture. And I do a lot of work and training with culture, and here's what I say about it, is that culture eats strategy every day. We can have all of the strategies we want, but if the culture won't support it, it isn't going to work. And that's why we're bringing you people to the table tonight in the next 5 meetings that we're going to have, is to become part of helping us to build this culture that we want. And then infuse it throughout our whole community and create that excitement for our values, our vision, our mission. Our values, I'm not going to read through them. We start with values. Some people say, well, I have to a lot of times go in and correct where people, how they put the words values, vision, and mission. As we define it, values outline everything that we're about. And one of the greatest compliments to values is when somebody points one out that you've broken or you're not honoring. And you know why? Because it means they're paying attention to your values. And likewise, if we find one that's violated, then we need to deal with that internally if we say that we really believe these things. And my challenge to people is, if we're not going to do anything about them, just take it off the list. And so values frame everything we're about, because when you know what's in your heart and what you stand for, now I can have a vision. And so our values frame everything we do. Then we move to vision, about being a destination district. And then our mission is why we open our doors, and what we do every single day is to engage, equip, and empower each student to realize their full potential. And in fact, on this committee is we had students even starting at 7th grade as part of this. And this originally came out equip, engage, and empower. And one of our seniors from high school is now a student at TW. She said, hey, wait a minute. She said, you're not going to equip me if you don't engage me first. And so we flip the words. And so we're about engaging our kids, equipping our kids, and then empower them to realize their full potential. We know that everybody has a different potential level. Some of it's because of desire, some of it's because of advantages they've had, some of it have, certain kids have drive to do things that other kids don't. We know that. But we have to make sure, like I said earlier, when we hand them a diploma, we better make sure we've not closed any doors to students. And facilities can play a role in that. That's why we need to make sure we make great decisions down the road. Here's a little bit about who we are as a district. You saw the map back there, but we have several different entities: Oak Point, Lakewood Village, Little Elm, Hackberry, the Colony, and Frisco. We have kids that come from each one of those municipalities. And so that's why it was important for us to take a look at the map to make sure everybody in one way or another is getting represented. And then as a whole, you represent everybody else that sends a child to Little Elm. Our campuses, we have 10. We're serving approximately just short, 5 or 6 kids short of 7,400 right now. We've got Prestwick, which is our K-8 academy in the Tribute area. And then we have the elementary schools, the ones with the stars, which is all but Lakeview, are our pre-K campuses through 5, and Lakeview is a K-5. Colin Powell 6th grade center, as you know, that was all Lakeside Middle School, at least when I came. And I'm just going to be transparent and honest. I looked at our 6th grade scores and said, this is an embarrassment. This is insane. And so what we did is split that off, asked the board for a separate principal, assistant principal, looked at what support systems to pull those kids away. I have no problem with 6, 7, 8, with a middle school principal for almost 9 years. Don't have an issue with 6, 7, and 8, but from a structure standpoint, we needed somebody to pay attention to those kids. Was it their fault at 6th grade? No, that was a K-5 problem. But I had to get them fixed as fast as we could at that 6th grade level, because remember, they're going to be in 7th and 8th and graduating. So we had to do what we could do in the interim. So eventually I see that we could go back to a 6, 7, 8 configuration someday. Those are all decisions that we're going to bring to you all to throw on the table, and because some of that will deal with facility. And so Lakeside Middle School, 7, 8, again, separate administration. They actually have the same campus number, but separate administration. And then Little Elm High School, 9 through 12. And then here at Zellers, we have our child care, and we have a couple aims and goals programs, as well as our district alternative educational placement, which is a disciplinary setting, are housed in this building, as well as central administration, obviously. And you all know the history of this campus and where it came from, so as to why we're here. A little bit about our demographics, and I call them learner demographics. We kind of like to talk about not students, but learners. And so our learner demographics, what I'm going to do is take you through each one of these, and and after I do each one, I'm going to give you the state percentage, so you can see how does Little Elm compare to the rest of the state of Texas, the 5.3 million children that go to public school in Texas. So in our particular district right now, this is the number of children, and that's the percent of the total population. So white is 37.8 at the state level. Only 28.6% of the kids in the state of Texas are white. Black African American, 12.6. Statewide, we're at 15.2. Asian, 2.6. We're at 4. Or the state's at 4.03. We're a little lower. What's interesting, Plano has the highest percent in the state, at 14 point some percent. So you can see how areas vary. Hispanic Latino, we're at 40.4%, and the state is at 52.2%. More than one mixed race, state 3.5, or excuse me, we're at 3.5 and the state at 2.05. And that's where they report on their home surveys more than one ethnicity background in the family. And then the one we didn't go through was the American Indian, Alaskan Native, 21.03%. And I don't have the state. We're at 0.3%, and Hawaiian Pacific Islander, we're at 0.2%. And we know that different groups, if you went over to HEB and Trinity, you'd see a huge population there in Pacific Islander. So people have a tendency to settle sometimes by area. But that's our learner demographics of what you see there. Here's our economically disadvantaged, why we share that number. And let me tell you, the only reason that I even think this is important is to make sure we're not underserving a group. That's it. Sometimes we get so hung up on all this reporting, and I said, in the state of Texas, what turns out the most stats of anything in the state of Texas, it's football. Well, if you pick up the paper or go to the internet on Friday night after a game, it doesn't say Hispanic receivers, 6 catches for 106 yards, and African American quarterbacks. It just says quarterbacks and receivers and names. The only reason that this is even important is to make sure that we're not underserving a group when it comes to achievement gaps. So economically disadvantaged, why is that important? Because many of the kids that get underserved also fit into this, or in 2 categories. And in economically disadvantaged, we know, it's not rocket science, we know that kids that come from disadvantaged homes have a harder time in education than kids that come from advantaged homes, for lots and lots of reasons. And we don't have time to go into all that. Someday, if you want that, I can give it to you. But here's our growth. And what you will notice is this is an anomaly in the state of Texas. This is an anomaly, what you're seeing. We're dropping because of the price points of our homes. Now, while the percentage drops, the numbers are rising, but the percentage is changing. And all you got to do is go out and price homes, that you start to see why that's happening. And so you say, well, how fast that changed? When Rick Reedy, former retired superintendent from Frisco ISD, Rick told me that when he came to Frisco, 48% free and reduced lunch. They're at 6% today. So that shows you how housing drives, and also I can tell you why it was at this level to start with. Housing drove it. There was affordable housing, to be able to purchase when money was easy to get, much easier than now. And you could get 100% loans, and you could get 80-20 mixes, and people were going in and buying homes at $100,000, $80,000, $85,000, $100,000. And then all things changed. So that's what's happened. It's why the numbers even might have been at that point, and then they drop. The bottom line is, whether forgetting all these categories, we're going to take care of every single child that walks through our doors. That's a moral obligation we have, and it needs to be yours also, because if we don't educate every single child at the highest level, regardless of what their backgrounds are, we're in trouble in this country. And again, I'd have to get into all the demographic things to show you that. We don't have time. But I just want to let you know what you're doing is important. From the state perspective, 58.3% are economically disadvantaged, and that number is rising every year. Okay? So we're a little bit of an anomaly. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Grant Anderson.